Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's lovely to be back again on the couch, episode number 3. And in today's video, we are inviting a guest who is going to be speaking about the journey of homeschooling. Now, as you all might be aware, of course, the lockdown, the homeschooling that's happening right now, there are parents out there who are finding it quite difficult. So we thought, what topic to bring to you guys than to talk about homeschooling, how we can, some advice, tips on what we can do with our children during this lockdown. But also, if someone is planning on doing homeschooling in the long term, then how do you go around doing it? Hopefully our guest speaker will be speaking about these issues today. So I'm just going to join him now. Alamin, yep, via request. Go. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu
alaikum.
How are you guys?
Yeah, alhamdulillah, good.
Good. You can hear me right? You can hear me well?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Brilliant. Nice. Thank you so much for joining us, Brother Alamin and Sister Neela. Today's topic, we want to talk about homeschooling. And I've got a list of questions that I want to ask you. And I'm sure there's parents out there, moms out there, dads out there who really want to know how homeschooling works, especially in the time that we're living in now. Who knows how long, the lockdowns are going to last, how long parents will have to, educate their children from home. So hopefully that's what we'll be talking about today. Yeah? Great.
Looking forward to it. I think
good.
The right time, isn't it? Because everyone is.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm sure as we, proceed with this chat, there will be some questions coming in. So hopefully we'll leave those questions till the end. Our viewers, please do, if you have any questions that you want to ask, these guys here that we have today, mashallah, they've been doing homeschooling for 6 years. So, these guys are very well versed on how everything works. If you have any questions, do send them in and we'll come to it towards the end. But before we start, just how are you guys? How are you finding lockdown? How's everything going for you? And, how's things at home with the kids all the time? Just,
Everything's going well. One of the main reasons is because, like you said, we've been doing homeschooling for 6 years. So lockdown-wise, effectively, we're locked down at home. We work from home. We educate our children from home. Our business is built around home life. So it hasn't been a big shock being based from home at all. That's our normality.
Okay.
That's been a blessing because obviously, if you're not used to it, it's something major. You're used to going out, working, and then suddenly you're just stuck at home. It feels like your life stopped. Our life is based from home, and then we do all our extra stuff by going out. So it hasn't changed in that respect. I think what has changed is more, we used to do a lot of stuff. So like going to the gym, playing football, traveling, all of that additional stuff we used to do. You can't do that no more, obviously, because of the safety and
seeing family, socializing with family mainly, isn't it?
Yeah. But we keep children, keep them entertained like everyone else, and the key thing is have a routine and structure your day so you don't have time to just think and be bored or dwell on what's going on.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, of course, we want to talk about right from the beginning. We want to go rewind, take you guys back down memory lane, and we want to ask you basically about how all of this stuff started. But before we do that, let me just ask you about you guys. Like, just introduce yourself so our viewers know exactly who you guys are, how long you've been doing homeschooling for, what kind of job do you have, etc.
Okay, sure. Yeah, so my name's Alamin and we're based in Cambridge, so it's my wife, obviously. We've got 3 children, haven't we?
Yeah.
Are you sure, guys?
I've got a daughter, 6-year-old, and 2 sons, 8 and 13.
Yeah, so that's our family life. So like I said, we work from home. I'm best known for running our business Alamin Media, which my wife is a part of as well. And we've got a few other ventures, but you know, this topic isn't about that. But basically, yeah, we live in Cambridge, work from home, run our businesses, and our kids are based at home with homeschooling.
Brilliant. So you told us how many kids you have. Are you sure 3 kids, right? Yeah.
We have our my cousin also who lives with us as well. So Nazir. So you could definitely say there's 4 kids in the house, but he's like nearly 20 now, so he's a proper adult now.
Yeah, of course, yeah. So I guess one thing, I know I can see people are joining, and I'm sure people will join throughout the live. Again, guys, whoever's joined now, please do, if you have any questions, just type them in the chat, and we'll come to those questions later towards the end. What I want to do now is kind of go right to the start now. If you can just tell us what made you decide that homeschooling is the best for your kids. And if I say correctly, I think you said you started about 6 years ago. So if 6 years ago, what was it? What was the turning point, and what kind of drove you to, you know, pull your kids out of state school and start homeschooling? Let's start from the beginning. How did your journey begin?
So, I mean, it wasn't a decision we just suddenly made. It took a long time. We had to think about it. So initially, I think we're getting information in the news that, you know, like subliminally, you sort of take it in. You don't effectively think about it straight away, but sort of news kept building up. It was things like changes potentially happening in the curriculum, sort of lessons younger children are going to be taught, things like that. But it wasn't a big issue, but, you know, it kept coming up. There was noise, there was things happening in the news in certain areas in England, you know, there was stuff going on. So I think slowly it was creeping into our mind, and more we started thinking about it. Obviously, our children were at that stage where they're going to nursery and primary, and we needed to sort of actually think, you know, what is best for them. You know, sometimes you just send them, it's part of normality and life, and you don't think about it. But you know what, we thought,
we had to think about the future.
Yeah, we had to think about the future and what is best for them and what suits us and them and their lifestyle. So it slowly, I think over months, you know, it wasn't like a week or 2 weeks, it was many months. So then we started sort of researching options. So initially, like they were in, like, we sent them to, it was like a Christian school, it was a Catholic school.
Yeah.
We had options, like right next to us is a city school, but we chose a faith-based school because we thought the kids, you know, they learn positive stuff, you know, like well-mannered and morals and stuff like that. So we chose a certain school to try and give them a good start. But still, I think even when they were going to school, there was always compromises and, you know, little things, but we didn't want to like go against it or be disruptive. You know, at the end of the day, they're there to provide education. That's their system, and we had to, you know, follow it. But over time, I think we were thinking, you know what, is there something else we can do? Is this the best way for our life, our lifestyle, our kids' lifestyle? And then with the news and things going on. Okay.
Yeah.
Can you hear me still?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah.
So do you think at that point, you know, is there a certain thing that you can pinpoint and say, this is the reason why? Or it's a collection of reasons that came together that started, as you said, you know, it was building up, and it wasn't something that you made up your mind in one day. It took a few months, as you said.
Yeah.
But could you pinpoint to something, maybe 1 or 2 significant reasons why you wanted to do this, I guess?
Well, firstly, it was, they went to church, didn't they, once a week, and we had to stop that, so we had to compromise on that, didn't we? And then it was other things like
so basically some of the things that was happening in your school that you did not want your children to take part in. Yeah,
you have to keep talking to the school and you know, like, say they can't do this, they can't do that, and you know, at the end of the day, the school's just doing what they do, and for us it's like, you know, you put yourself in an uncomfortable situation, you keep requesting things.
Yeah, of course.
It was a build up of a lot of things. It's not one thing, and it was over time. And I think you just naturally came to a decision. And I guess we evaluated ourselves before we made a decision, because we had to see what's best for our children, and if we can
Also,
take on that responsibility.
if we can be capable of teaching them.
Because it's not just about pulling them out, it's whether we give them an education, because it's a massive responsibility and it's on your shoulders, and you can't blame anyone or do, you know, it's down to you. So I think there was a lot of looking at ourselves as well before we came to it. So a lot of decisions, a lot of thinking, internally and externally.
So you've decided that you want to obviously start homeschooling. You looked at your life, you looked at your circumstances, and you two felt that you can, you know, carry this on and give your children education from home. So what was the next step then? I mean, was there any legal requirements? Did you have to inform certain bodies? What happened after that?
Well, I think what it is, before that, we sort of analysed. So we looked at the positives and negatives, and we wanted to see if the positives outweigh the negatives of doing homeschooling. So we looked at that very closely, and I think eventually we thought, with our experience, with our setup at home, the positives outweighed the negatives. But then we looked at two things. We actually looked at private education was one, and we looked at homeschooling. And we want to analyse both. So private education may give our kids a more sort of a one-to-one tailored education, a bit, you know, like less children in the class, and usually a better level of education. But again, there was negatives. You still had to compromise. It's still part of the system, and then there was cost involved and things like that. So it wasn't something we felt we could do, and it still didn't solve everything that we were thinking that we wanted to get away from. So then we looked at homeschooling, and first of all, what is homeschooling? So effectively, it's educating your children away from the public and private education system. So we looked at that, and then we had to look at the legality, like you said. And legal-wise, if your children are already in school, you need to deregister them. And there's two processes to that. One is you need to communicate with the school. You can send a letter, but I think it's better. And what we done is we communicated with the head teacher, arranged a meeting, and we discussed like our concerns and what we're thinking. And it wasn't even to say, look, we're pulling the kids out of school. It was more to have a conversation, say, look, this is our concerns. This is what we're thinking. What do you advise? You know, very informal. And, you know, our head teacher, she was like really good, really understanding. She understood our concerns, and she actually probably helped us more to make our decisions, because she actually backed us and said, look, I think you can do this, and I think it's a good decision. And we explained like our concerns, and she's like, look, to be honest, even like as Muslim parents, like there's not many of you doing homeschooling. And if anything, more like Christian parents, Jewish parents pull their kids out of school because of their concerns more than Muslim parents. I was like, really? I was very surprised when they said that. And she's like Jewish parents, like they just fundamentally against any teaching with evolution, they just pull the kids out straight away. There's no compromise. And, you know, Christian parents as well. But we're like, wow, we're surprised. And she was just telling us, like, you guys are compromising more than faith-based parents.
I guess in a way that must have reassured you that, look, what we are doing now, what we are planning, it's nothing unusual. It's some parents are doing it. So that must have given you some sort of reassurance, I guess.
That was reassurance. And then, like, I looked into homeschooling families in Cambridge, and I don't know the figures. It was a while back now, but it's got a massive group of homeschooling families. It's big, and usually it's families that like are educated, parents are working. It's not. It's like a very cross-broad, and like I looked at it as a positive.
Yeah.
And I thought, you know what, everything's going towards, you know, it is a good thing. And the other thing the head teacher said to us was, look, if you do homeschooling, if it doesn't work, no problem. We'll be happy to have your kids back, you know.
That's good.
Yeah. That was reassuring as well, because, you know, like we take them out, it goes wrong, they lost their seats and stuff. So our head teacher was very supportive. So going back to legalities, if the head teacher wasn't supportive, it could cause problems because one, they need to sort of sign it off and think like we are capable, we can give an education.
So sorry, before you move on, what kind of things do they look at? I mean, do they look at your situation as parents? Do they look at the child's grades, or do they look at the child's,
I mean, our children like Abdulazim and Abdulalim were very young then. So I don't think grades came into it, or the children. I guess they've got an idea of the child from school, like happy, and
I think it was mainly how.
But I think it's how we came across
with our head teacher
with the school, and the reasons, and like I think if you go in attacking the school, attacking the curriculum, and things like that, they might look at you more adversely, like your mindset. But if we've got concerns, but it's not just about the concerns. We feel like we can give a good education. This suits our lifestyle. We're looking into it seriously. We're educating ourselves. We've got a good setup at home. I think they're looking at an overall picture. I think we also showed, look, we're happy to work with the school. We want their advice. And I think they looked at that positively. Like, I don't know if it's the right way, but that's how we done it. So we didn't attack the school in any way, and there was nothing to attack. The school was doing good. We're happy with the school, and there wasn't anything negative about the school we could say. It was just, we could foresee in the future with the curriculum and things were going to go down a path that we weren't comfortable with. And us as parents, us as sort of even individuals, like, we're not ones to sit there and just complain. Like, if we feel like we can do something, we'd rather do it than sit there complain. At the end of the day, the school's there. This is the curriculum. This is the system. And you play by the rules, or you look at other avenues. And that's what we've done. And the system allowed us to look at the other avenues. So in England, legally, you do not have to send your children to school, which I didn't know. I thought you have to. You don't have to, but if you do, then you've got to deregister. If they've never been, you don't need to send them at all. And there's no legal requirement. Now, as far as I understand, legally, you have to provide some sort of education. That is a requirement. But that is actually a grey area. Education isn't defined, which I was surprised. I was like, really surprised. I thought, if you're going to teach from home, there must be some structure. There must be some curriculum you're meant to follow, some sort of milestones your child has to achieve. But in England, there's absolutely nothing like that at all.
And that's surprising, because thinking, we live in England and the Department for Education is like so big, in this country. And you would assume that they have things set up for parents who want to do homeschooling. So they kind of left it open for the parents to decide how they teach it in a way.
I mean, I assumed it would, and I think if it was there, it would probably be helpful. Because we could have known what to do, what structure to follow, and it could have been set up, but it wasn't at all, and it's not defined, which was very strange. So what we done, we took a course, so we just went online, found a course on homeschooling to actually find out what does this involve, because we never done it, and I don't knew any parents who done it as well, especially in like the Bengali community. Like, we didn't know anyone that done it. So we took a course, and
that helped.
I think that helped a lot, because it sort of explained the structure, what's involved,
what to expect.
The pros and the cons. And so the more we researched, the more confidence that grew. The negative put us off. They looked at challenges that we could overcome.
Oh, that's really good that you took the course. And would you say that course, looking back now, it was a massive help to kind of start you off in your homeschool life?
Now, definitely, it was a massive help. And you know what? The course was sort of structured like we're talking now. It was talking about the legalities, what you need to do, what to expect, how to structure it,
how to organize,
and it really helped, because then we knew, like, in our mind, we've seen professionals presented a course who do this day in, day out, and there's nothing we can't do if we have the determination and grit to, go for it.
Of course, yeah. So after your head teacher kind of gave you the green light, fine, you guys did your own course. You then obviously started to begin, but then how did you find out about what to teach? I mean, the content, how many hours would you put in? Was there a legal requirement in terms of how many hours they have to study, etc.?
So after head teacher said, look, go ahead, what one he had to do was contact the council. I think the head teacher would write a letter anyway.
Yeah.
And in each council, there's a department. It's called like elective education department or homeschooling department. And they literally register you as homeschooling parents. And that you off the system, then they'll send you a letter to confirm that.
Okay.
And that's the legal side done. It's literally a form where you fill in to say, we're taking responsibility and we will provide an education to our children.
Yeah.
So you sign like a waiver and the schools signed it off. That's done. And then I guess the research started, like, what are we going to do? What are we going to teach our children?
Yeah.
And there was no, like, we didn't have the answer from day one. It was a learning curve for our children and us. We had to learn as we went along, because there's no set structure, no set plan. So we done research, like online a lot. We looked at a lot of forums, what is taught. And I think what we felt was like, we wanted to focus on quality education to our children. So with the school system, like it's I guess a one size fit for all system. Yeah. We wanted our children to focus on like the core subjects first. So I think what we chose maths, English and science. And we thought, you know what, let's really give a thorough grounding on these subjects and let them really understand it. And not like in school we give 10 subjects, and because we couldn't do that, you know, like we're working business to run, and we got to dedicate a certain amount of hours, but we didn't want to do it like school 9 to 3 all day. So we had to, you know, like focus on what we're going to do. The maths, English and science was the core subjects. And I think in between that, we were flexible. So, you know, like
they do like history,
geography, cooking, you know, like
skills,
little things on.
Yeah. So how did you know exactly what kind of things to teach? Were you still in contact with the school, or now this was like your own research, buying, you know, Key Stage 1, Key Stage 2 books? Were you just taking the content from the books, or were you asking around, or how did you know what exactly to teach?
So I think it's very important that you have an understanding of education, so, and you have a background knowledge. So myself, I've worked with kids for 9 years. I'm a nursery nurse, so I think that's important, you know, to have that side of
course, yeah,
understanding, and your knowledge, it has to be, you know, towards children, or, you know, mothers can, but that helps a little bit. So I've taught children, you know, up until like 5 years old, and I've been a TA and I've helped them, I say 6 to 7 year olds. So I've got that knowledge of, you know, it has to be structured, and the main education is maths, you know, English and science. So that knowledge is important, and that's where, you know, we focus on that. You do have a lot of resources out there and support groups as well. So my main resource is Twinkle. Like they're a so it's
a website which provides like lesson plans and worksheets. I think twinkle.co.uk. So that is structured from nursery, isn't it, to preschool to GCSE. So I think that helped. And then you looked at the curriculum as well and the key stages. So there's a lot of books and resources available. I think it was a mixture of getting the workbooks, looking at Twinkle, looking at online resources like BBC Bite Size, YouTube. And what you done was you created like a weekly lesson plan, you know, like on the weekends, you plan your lessons.
Planning is important, I'll say, if you want homeschool. That's very important. You have to plan ahead, else I don't think you can achieve anything. It will just go downhill.
So it's not suited for people who wake up in the morning and say, right, guys, kids, come on to the table, let's do some school, without no planning. Something like that would be diabolic, I guess. And instead of benefiting the kids, probably detrimental instead. So as you said, planning is important. And I guess even if you're working at a primary or a secondary school or any type of school, planning is, you know, number one thing. I work in the school and I know how important planning is. So it's probably the same thing for you guys then, you know, making sure you know exactly what you're going to be covering for the week ahead, knowing what your goals are, objectives are. But yeah, I think, would you say that takes a lot of time, or do you find it quite easy to kind of plan your lessons for the week?
I think like
I've
initially, you know, it took
Yeah.
time because you had to learn where to find the resources, how to plan, even the structures. Like, are you planning a day before, a week before? Some parents, like we saw, like online, the course we done, they were planning a month before, and they had like 30 folders with every worksheet plan. You're like, you can as organized as you want, or you can go with the flow and like a week at a time or a day at a time. But I think you found the balance was like a week ahead, isn't it?
Yeah,
like
a week ahead.
Then you can assess how the child done that week, and if you have to sort of change it or not.
The main is your children, they have different abilities as well. So they could, because we're doing it one-to-one, they could learn faster as well. So it can change, like the levels can go up or levels can go down. So I do key stage like 3, 4, key stage 1, 2, 3. But sometimes like my 6-year-old, she can jump ahead. So I'll give her, the higher level, or sometimes she can, not understand it. And so I'll give her the lower level. So it's different because it's more tailored for them, homeschool.
Yeah.
Yes, I think use the key stages as a guide.
It's a
guideline,
more, yeah.
But we can move the levels up and down how we feel our children are progressing.
Yeah. Before I move on to the topic of asking you guys about your typical day, what's your typical day of a homeschooling life? I just want to ask this question: who's the good cop? Who's the bad cop? Because parents will know you need one good cop, one bad cop. Who's the good one out of you guys that gives kids the treats and sweets and praises?
I'm the strict head teacher.
Sometimes known as the dragon.
Yeah.
What we also had to do was like, obviously we're running the business from home initially, and the more we started doing homeschooling and going into it, we realized that it's a real proper commitment. And like my wife was like really involved in our business, and I think we said, look, take less responsibility because the education of a child is more important. So she's to lead in that role, and I think someone needs to lead. Like, if there's 2 of you, then someone needs to lead, and really focus on that, and really put your energy into it, because you can't do it half-hearted. So and then because my wife is teaching them she needs to be the strict one, definitely. So and at the end of the day, she's a mother, but when you're coming down to teach, she's a teacher, and
of course
there has to be a certain level of strictness there. And that means I can relax and be the good guy, everything. So I think I'm better that way as well.
There has to be one person. Yeah.
Yes.
I
want to ask you guys about your typical day. So tell us, how's it like to live, a lifestyle where you're running your business from home, then at the same time in the other room, your kids are learning. What's the typical day? What time do they wake up? And do they have like break, lunch? How does it work?
So at the end of the day, I think you got to go back to why you done homeschooling. So if you've done homeschooling to give education based around your lifestyle and your principles and beliefs, I think you need to then execute that. So ours was like fundamental that our kids do the salahs, read the Quran, and then I think what is balance. So we were looking at like our family life. So it was like the health, it was the iman, it was the relationships with their family and parents, and we wanted to put everything balanced. Then we based the school life around that as well. So I think typical day, like we expect at least our oldest 2 boys to pray Fajr, and then
how old are your 2 eldest sons?
So 9 and 13.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they'll do their Fajr, and then in the morning they'll do exercise. So it could be walking around the block, it could be doing something like watching a workout video, it could be going into the garden, and just to get the energy levels up, because at the end of the day, you're at home, where school's like different. You get up, you get changed, you walk out the door, you go on the bus, like you got to get the mindset ready for education and the energy up, where you just come down and you feel like you're still at home. So we had to put that in place for them to focus. Like, you know, there's a routine, and you need to get into that mode that education is going to start, and you need to build your energy levels up.
Yeah.
So I think typically, when do you start lessons? Is it around 10?
So typically, no, 9 o'clock.
9, yeah.
Because it starts with their physical education, isn't it?
Yeah.
So
You mentioned Quran as well. So do they start off with Quran as well, doing a bit of reading, recitation?
yeah, so that's the first thing. Well, first thing is PE. Then after PE, for them to, you know, be focused, they start on the Quran. So they hifz in the morning. So that's the best time to do it. Feel. So they do 1 hour of hifz, and then that's when they start. I usually do maths after hifz because they say it's better to do maths first thing. Quite complicated. So that's the first lesson they usually have. And then from there they do reading, and then they have their lunch, they have breaks. So it's a bit like school, but, you know, we put a timetable in place. But more, you know, obviously it's in your home, isn't it? So we have to balance it around that.
So we're flexible, but the work that's set needs to get done. So if we finish early, we can finish early. If it takes longer, it takes longer. But there's a balance. So they're having their lessons. So we've got a small office where they're having the lessons. And then sometimes I'm working in there, or if there's a lot going on, I would stay in the dining room or living room. And, you know, I've got a laptop, I get off work. And then when they're finished, I sort of move into that room and take over. So we've got like a system in place. Like if I need to take a phone call, I can go to the dining room. And so we structured a system that works for us.
And you need a lot of space for homeschooling, because the books, resources, you need all that space, and your surrounding is very important as well. If the kids don't feel relaxed in their surroundings, then I don't think, you know, they'll focus or they'll learn. So your home is important, isn't it? How you, you know, present your home.
So so like the environment, like when they're going into that room, they know they're going into school effectively. So we start.
So I mean, you just mentioned like they need to feel as if it's like a learning environment. And I have come around your house a few times in the past, and I know that I've seen like there's posters, alphabet posters for your young one, I think, and there's maths posters. And I think making your kind of deco based on that kind of schooling environment, it does help the kids know mentally that they are ready to learn and they're ready to study, which I think it's a brilliant idea.
Yeah, and it really confuses my clients when they come in. They're ready to learn, and they're like, what's going on? Am I learning biology or come to learn marketing today? So it's quite fun, but it's quite a good icebreaker. But I think the boards are quite good, the display boards, because it feels like school. And, you know, like even the room, we've kept it white, and the desks and stuff. So it just gives that feel, and it keeps that separation. Even like working from home, I need that separation. Like I'm office, it's that mindset where you go into work, and if you don't have that, it's very difficult. If you sort of eat at the dining table, work at the dining table, do schooling at the dining table, I think it'll be a struggle. I
think it's interesting you said that you do need space, you know, for your books, resources, pen, pencil, just the way how you find all these things in school in a cupboard or something. It must be quite important to have everything stocked up, piled up. And that kind of brings me to the next question. I mean, how do you get all these resources? Do the school help with financially? Would they kind of help with buying all of these things? Do you get a grant of some sort, or how does it all work?
So I looked into it a lot when we first started, and financially, like the council will give you nothing, and the school will give you nothing. There is nothing in place unless there's voluntary organisations who've set things up. So everything is on yourself, really. You need to provide the books, resources. And I think if you're going to do this, or you're starting off, you need to have some money ready to invest in this, because everything is online. And to get online, you need a computer. I think a lot of parents during lockdown struggled is they had a computer, but not necessarily a printer. And they couldn't print the resources. So even like we ended up having to lend a printer to one parent because they couldn't get it because it was lockdown and the shops were closed. So but you need money for resources, for computer, and if you're going to get the internet, you need to pay for internet, and then you need the books, pens. It does add up.
Yeah.
You can be very resourceful and do everything on a budget. So, but it's difficult now. Like before, you could go to the library maybe and print stuff off and use their computer and use the books and take them home. But obviously, with lockdown and things like that, that's not there. But if you don't have finances in place, then education could just stop. So I think it's unrealistic to think you can do this with nothing. And I think you need to go in thinking there is no help financially. If you find something, if there is a grant or resource, then that's a bonus. But I haven't seen anything really in place at all. So you've got to fund it all, really.
And
so I get, sorry, go on, sister.
No, and exams, you know, the GCSE exams, obviously we'll have to look at that, whereas the school would have paid for, you know,
even simple things like if you were getting free school meals at school, you know, that's gone at home.
It's gone now, It's biryani and curry now, isn't it? Before I go to my next question, so the whole aspect of financially, you know, being able to, you know, save up and have a budget for your resources, it's not just for 1 or 2 years, I guess, because, you know, children's education will last for many years, so you need to have something, a budget there, which is kind of a regular budget. It's, you know, constantly there, so you know you can pay for stuff from there.
If you don't have a budget, if you don't have disposable income to spend towards that, you're going to struggle very quickly. And then that's just going to cause stress. You know, like you want a certain subject, you need certain resources, and you can't get it because even like the resources on the website, you got to join. There's a membership fee. There's ways where you can minimize costs. You can maybe partner up with another person who's doing it and share the cost. But one way or another, you do need it. And I think if you're going to this already financially struggling, then it's not the best move until you put yourself in a situation where you can fund it, because education can be very expensive, and you can't struggle financially, because then you're going to struggle giving your child an education.
And I guess that could lead to the parents just giving up and wasting that however much time, however many months or years, and then having to send them back to school again. That could cause issues for the children as well, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, you know, they'll get in a certain pattern at home, and you might have just systemized it, got it ready, and then suddenly it's a shock, and the child's not like ready to go back to school, not used to school anymore, and it could cause a lot of problems. So I think you've got to really think about this, and that's one of the things we looked at before we got into this. We looked at our lifestyle, our finances,
whether we can, you know,
like whether we can do it,
and for all those years.
And I think what helped is because we run our own business and we work from home. We set ourselves up over the years to be able to have the resources to run a business from home and effectively teach our kids from home as well, because it needed the same like mindset, elements and resources. You could look at the school as a little business effectively, and you need all the tools there to run it properly. So I think we were set up because we were already set up to work from home, and that just helped. And we overcome those issues quickly. But if you're not like that already, then I think you've got a plan, and it's better not to rush into it. Even if you think, look, I do want to do it, then, you know, work towards being financially ready in a year or two. You know, you don't need to rush into these things. It's to be careful and, you know, calculated, because it's your child's education at the end of the day.
Absolutely, before I get onto the topic on how do the kids feel about this, and I'm seeing there's a lot of questions which we'll hopefully come to at the end. Before we talk about the kids' perspective and how they feel about everything, just one last question about you guys. Are there any obstacles, challenges that you faced in setting this up? I know we've spoken about like financial things and all that kind of stuff, or you need to have all that kind of set up, but are there like stress days that you have? Are there days that you feel like I can't do it, or do you force yourself out of bed, force the kids out? Because it's just natural, I guess. You know, some days even in school you see kids come in and it's an off day for them. They don't want to study. They might cause trouble. So how do you get around all of that stuff?
Well, definitely, yeah, definitely. We do have off days, don't we?
How do you overcome those?
Well, with me, I find having...
You're the dragon, right? So you just breathe fire on them.
I think that, you know, motivate you, because sometimes I do say, you know, I can't do it no more. But if you have someone saying to you, you know, don't worry, it will get better.
Yeah.
You know, positives, motivational, you know, words, then it makes you feel better as well.
I think what we do, like what you do as well, like sometimes if it's like the day we're struggling, we could just stop, go for a drive, go for a walk, or just stop the lesson and then come back to it fresh-minded. Like you're in an environment where you have to just keep going, you know, like school, as in there's no way out. We could just say, you know what, let's just forget it now, come back to it.
Have a break.
And if there's a struggle, like you will look at other resources. So maybe like my son's not getting something and he's really struggling, we'll go away and then like you research and like maybe find a video on YouTube that explains it in a different way.
Because
and then so you overcome it, because there's always a solution, but you have to sometimes just step back and go back at it again. Because there's no point getting really worked up and stressed, because at the end of the day, the child's going to be upset, mum's going to be upset, and they're going to try and upset me, and it's just not going to be that. So
positive. I'm guessing one of the key things is patience then, isn't it?
that's the main thing. You need a lot of patience. If you homeschool your children, you need a lot of sabr, and
patience is the
planning.
biggest thing. I think being patient, I think being resourceful and going out there, finding solutions to the problems, finding people who can support you. You know, you've got to be very resourceful and patient. And if you have that, then I think you can carry on. But if you're a very impatient person naturally, if you snap very quickly, then it's not right for you. And there's nothing wrong in that at the end of the day. You know, everyone's different. So you got to analyze yourself. And if you know your weaknesses as well, you can work towards it. You know, like if you, you can, I think there's a lot of self-development in this, you know, like how you start, how you are now. You've worked at it, you know, it's a learning process for not just the child, it's for the parent as well.
And children, you know, all the time, they're like, their development level changes with their age. So we have to, you know, expect that. We have to expect that, oh, my 13-year-old, he will have like mood swings or, you know, we have to deal with it. But if you expect the worst, then everything will be smooth, isn't it?
And I think what's different, like it's quite difficult as well, is we've got children like different age groups. So, but in the same class doing lessons, but it could be one lesson maths, but they all got different.
There are different stages,
So very, like if you've got more than one child, you've got to like really think out of the box in your planning.
You have to understand your child, I say. That's the main important thing. Understand their ability, the way they work.
Because there's so many different teaching techniques as well, isn't it? Not all of them will be tailored towards all three. One of your child could learn differently. One could be, you know, learning visually, etc. So that, I guess, is also something to take into consideration.
I think that's where like the real advantage of homeschooling is. You have that one-to-one, so you can focus on like one of the child who's struggling and like find a solution to struggle. So like you said, it might be visual and they need to just watch a video to get it, or they need to have it written out on a board instead of just looking at a worksheet. So that's the advantage of homeschooling. You can focus on a child.
Take as long as you want.
And take time,
Because I know how, you know, even in school, like, sometimes the teacher might just carry on. Student hasn't yet learned it, and then that causes further damage going forward.
I mean, even experience at school, like maths was like probably a struggle for me, and like, if you didn't keep up with the lesson, you were behind. Like you said, the teacher moves on, because at the end of the day, the teacher's got 30 kids, 25 kids, so you can't just wait for one child. But then you've fallen behind in that lesson, and you haven't caught up in that lesson, and then you're on to the next lesson, and then by the time you're just behind. And I think what we do is, until our children get it, we don't move on.
Mm.
But we're allowed to do that because we don't have a time limit. Even for them to do their GCSEs, we don't have a time limit. They could do it early, they could do it late, but they need to be at the right stage to do it. And that's what we're aiming for. And we're not trying to, impose 10, 15 GCSEs on them. We're going for quality. So 4 or 5. And, like when I've gone for jobs and I've worked in like the corporate jobs and everything, minimum you need is 5 GCSEs normally for most. That's the minimum requirement. So, I think there's a big emphasis on getting a lot of GCSEs, but we're going for quality.
Rather than
but we still want them to get GCSEs, and depending on their aspirations, A levels, because there's a certain amount of requirements out there if they're going to go into a job. We need to have that ready for them and them prepared, because if they want to do a certain job and they don't have that, we failed them effectively. But we've got to help them to achieve the minimum requirements at least if they're going to go into a job that they want. But if they're going to a job that they want, we can also explore other avenues to help them, like gain experience, gain training. That's the flexibility we've got. So like even myself, when I went into IT, I realized like the qualifications was important, but not as important as experience. So a lot of my friends went to uni, and I went to uni, but they sort of carried on and done degrees and master's degrees in computer sciences. I done like an initial 1 year training in IT. So I paid for a course and done like a 6-week practical course in IT. And then I went for jobs where people had degrees, but I had the experience and I got it ahead of them. We can look at what's required in the workforce depending on what they want to do. And who knows, they might not want a job. They might want to be a business owner, and it depends on their mindset. Trying to discover what they want to do as we go along as well, and try and support that as well.
So I want to talk about your children now. Obviously, it's a big change, and we'll get, I think when we talk about this topic, there's going to be a lot of questions that are going to be answered now. Firstly, how do they feel about homeschooling? Do they feel they are missing out on things? Do they feel like, I wish I was in school doing this? So what's their take on everything? Because obviously you see them every day, and you know how they are, you know what their attitude is towards learning. How do they feel about the whole homeschooling stuff?
So I think like even when we took them out of, they were young, they were like primary school, so they'd done like a couple of years, isn't it? We spoke to them and we discussed our plans, and they were interested. Obviously they were young still, but if they ever said, look, we'd rather be in school and we don't want homeschooling, we wouldn't stop that. We would put them back into school. But they enjoy it. They tell their friends, family members they enjoy it. They really like it. So like, obviously as parents, they might say, yeah, I like it. They might, just keep us happy.
For the sake of it.
We listen to what they say to their cousins and their friends. So they do like madrasa lessons online. They play games online, and they're always speaking to their cousins.
Well, they used to go, because of lockdown, they don't go, but they attend weekend madrasas.
Yeah,
so they've got friends.
Sports clubs they went to. Yeah. So I never saw them talking sort of negatively about homeschooling, saying they miss school, and they haven't come back saying, my friend does that at school, I wish I'd done that. We've never had that. And at the end of the day, they stopped at primary school. So you can't sort of miss what you haven't done as well.
Yeah, of course.
So, and I think it's quite nice where their cousins are going to school and they've got a different level of conversation. So between them, they're talking about homeschooling. Their cousins are asking, what do you do? How is it? And then they could ask about school. But there's no like, oh, I'm missing out. They've never said that to us. Yeah.
So do you think, looking back, it was a good idea to start homeschooling from a young age? Do you feel like if you started homeschooling, I don't know, in year 5, year 6, even year 7, secondary school, it probably would have been different, maybe?
Yeah. I think...
That's the advantage if you start them off at a young age.
They're adaptable, isn't it?
They get used to it.
The kids are more flexible at a young age. They'll just go with the flow.
Yeah.
And I think it would be much more difficult when they're older because, then they're settled in school. They've got their friends. They've got what they do. They might have joined clubs at school. And I think it will be a big disruption later. Later, you really got to have, a lot of good reasons to really disrupt what they're doing. So I think it's better when they're younger, definitely, because they haven't really settled into school. They're just like getting used to it and things like that.
And I guess, what you mentioned about it's just different, isn't it? And when they have conversation with their cousins or their friends, we do this or we do that, and it's like, it's not like you can say they're missing out on anything, because they're still involved in other extracurricular activities, like games online and you guys, I think you did mention at the beginning you like to travel, so they aren't really missing out on things, are they? And actually that brings me to the next question about the whole social aspect, because in school, yes, you have your friends, you know, you know the latest trends and this and that. How do you find that then? How do your kids adapt to the social aspect of life when you do homeschooling?
I mean, one of the main reservations that come up, and then sort of like negativity will come up from other parents asking us is, are your kids gonna not be able to socialize? Are they going to turn into hermits? Because and first of all, like in school, let's just say you're in a class of 20 or 25 kids. In normal day-to-day life, you're not really in a class like in an environment with loads and loads of people talking to them constantly. So that's not normality anyway. Even if you're in the workforce, like you might be in an office with 2 or 3 people, or if it's a big office, you're at your desk and you talk to one person opposite, one beside you.
Yeah,
that isn't normality in real life after you leave school anyway. But you got to be used to 20, 30 people around you 5 days a week. I don't think that's normality. But socially, what it is that we've discovered is like the social skills develop better because they're speaking with adults, they're speaking with their siblings constantly, and we're having conversations that, like at school sometimes, like when they were young, it'll be immature conversations.
Sure, yeah.
It's silly. It's what it is for their age. It's normality. But, like as parents, we're still speaking at a certain level to them. And I think they pick up on that and they actually excel in communication. And like our kids, I think they're quite confident around adults as well as kids. They talk confidently to them and they're not missing out with anything. I think it's more of an advantage when they're surrounded by like their parents and their siblings and in an environment where they're not the conversation skills aren't getting dragged down because of minors or immaturity, like things like that. I think it's better, personally.
And they're going to madrasa, they have madrasa friends, so their companions are following the same path as them.
Yeah.
So
and I think what we've done with madrasa, and we even once a week before lockdown, they were having tuition as well. So just for like a couple of hours a week, we used to send them to tuition for math and English. And there was 2 aspects of that. One was, so they still got that little bit of classroom environment, like it was a very small class, 5, 6 students, where they'd done a couple of hours of maths and English. So they still get that in that lesson. In madrasa is a school environment. So we have got that balance there as well. Like they can't feel they've missed out on class completely because they do class lessons as well. But it's limited. And I think that also helps us as well because when they're there, it's just another set of eyes that sees how they're doing. They do little tests and we know they're progressing because we might think they're progressing, but are they? So it's an independent person testing them. We found that's useful and we done that like later on, after a few years and they got a bit older. So that helped as well. So I think there is a balance, but social wise, we see them, they're confident, they're happy, they're speaking to their cousins, they're speaking to friends, and their communication level is good. Like one of my sons, he's excelling in communication, but he's got his own YouTube channel now. He's like 9, isn't it? And he's just naturally speaking away, reviewing things, and like I don't know suddenly where he got the confidence from.
Tell us the YouTube channel, guys. Whoever's watching, subscribe to his son's YouTube channel.
TEK, because TECH was taken by loads of people. And again, he suddenly found his passion that he wanted to like review technology. And so as soon as lesson's over, we're like, what do you want to do? And he's like, I want to review stuff. Can I get this? Can I get that? And can I start reviewing? We're like, go ahead. And he started like finding and educating himself. Like I didn't teach him how to set up a YouTube channel. I didn't teach him how to take screenshots and review things. If anything, he can teach me. So what happened is like he started becoming resourceful himself
Independent.
and independent.
Yeah.
And I think one key thing about homeschooling is you're not there to teach your kids every day till they're 16, 18, 20. You're there to teach them how to learn for themselves and become independent learners. And that's your goal that you have, is teaching them how to like teach themselves eventually. And eventually when they're like more in their early teens, they can sit there and just go through their lessons.
The purpose of,
yeah.
You know,
And if they're stuck, they'll
yeah.
find out how to find the answers. And you know, like when we went to university and stuff, the lecturer just stood there talking and you had to just go away and write the assignment and find the answers. So you need to give that aspect of getting them to become independent learners eventually as well. And then slowly you can back off and set the lessons or set the topic.
I guess you guys can just oversee what they're doing, how they're learning, and it's just like keeping a set of eyes on them and their learning, their education. And I guess, you know how you mentioned that your kids go to a weekend madrasa, the social element can be found there with, you know, friends, but it's not to that extent that it's 5 days a week. It's a limited time with people that you know you can trust, because it's a madrasa, teachers, ustads there. And that kind of gives them the good of both worlds, I guess, in a way, isn't it?
Yeah. And, you know, they've got the madrasa, which is their friends, you know, like Muslim friends. And, you know, they play football or sport. And, you know, it's important to mix with English, Europeans, you know, like they're used to everyone. It's very important. So you can't just pull away from life. Your kids still need to be used to interacting with different people, but it's controlled for us. And I think one thing that helps, and we've seen struggles like our friends with teenage children, is we don't need to worry about peer pressure. We don't need to a certain extent worry about like the latest trends you were talking about. Our children, like, you know, they still want to wear maybe a certain brand of trainers and this, like when they're getting older, but it's not constant. There's no one there judging them, laughing at them,
absolutely,
bullying them. These are like aspects, like, you know, like, alhamdulillah, I think it's been a blessing that we've seen other parents struggling through and they talk to us and we're like, we don't face that.
You guys don't face that then, do you? No.
At all. And that's been a blessing, and especially like bullying and things like that. And then even when they were younger, like they were invited to certain like birthday parties and stuff, you know, and there's so much you can say no. And like we went and then suddenly we find out like it could be at a pub, or it could be, you know, like kids are in the plays in the pub setting and different things, and like all of this stuff we can avoid because we've got a certain amount of control now, and they don't need to be exposed to that, and they don't feel like they're restricted either, because we're not constantly saying no to them, because the environment, we're happy with what they have, and we're more comfortable. Like if they are invited to something, but they're going to be in an environment that isn't against our principles, our beliefs, our iman. So we've, you know, avoided those challenges, which school we were thinking was going to be a challenge. And your intention and your beliefs and principles, why you're doing this in the first place. And then, you know, it would be wrong to use those as an excuse to pull them out of school and then go back to those things as well.
In terms of learning, I know you said you've got space in your house, you've got a room dedicated for learning as well. Does your learning also extend beyond the classroom, beyond your house? Do you do other methods of teaching by taking them outside and learning about other stuff? How do you guys get involved in that stuff?
That was a big thing. Like as a family, we used to like traveling, going out, eating out, and I think homeschooling, I think, is a lifestyle. It's not something you just do. It has to be built around your life. And homeschooling also allowed us to do what we enjoy more. So like lessons wise, like we've had lessons, we went down to Thetford Forest. They done exercise, they done nature sort of tasks and projects.
Map reading,
If we go away, say abroad, we would base study around where we're going, and they can do topics around that as well. So to be honest, like everything becomes education, and it's not just maths, English, science. Our kids get to learn about life skills, which is one of the things like I think school does not prepare you for.
Mm-hmm.
So they're used to like airports, going to planes, using a debit card. Like we set challenges like if my son's like teenager said like he wanted a pizza, we're like, okay, we'll take you there, but you got to go to the counter, you got to order it. Here's my debit card, this is the PIN number, you got to use it or use a touchscreen, and you got to come back out with what you ordered. So it's given them confidence and life skills as well in many aspects, and like even like finances, like having budgets and spending and cooking. Like one of my sons like enjoys cooking, so sometimes the lessons will just be around cooking or them making their breakfast. And I think like with lifestyle, we even give them chores. So you know, with school it's hard. Like if you send your son or daughter to school all day, they come back, they're tired, they want to just go to their room, and then they just want to watch TV or play on the games. You can't then give them chores and things, you know, like parents struggle to do that. They're just like, my kid's tired. But with us, we can give them chores, which gives them responsibility as well. So they're becoming more rounded as people, you know, like more prepared for life, I think, where for many children, it's like you're in that education system, you come out and you're not prepared for basics, like how to make breakfast. You know, like people go to university and they live on pot noodles, don't they?
No, that's such a good point that you made. I mean, I think the key message that I understand from your homeschooling is that it's a lifestyle for you. You can't just press play, homeschool, stop, pause. It's everything's based around it, isn't it? From what I understand.
It's a journey. It's not a race. Like you've got to be in for the long haul. And I think you won't see the results or the rewards till many, many years later. So it's going to be a struggle, and I think you should expect it to be hard. If it's easy, everyone would do it. And I think if you're committed and you're passionate, like you will get there. But don't expect it to be easy. Like one of my family members, like one of my uncles, he was just like, you do homeschooling, does that mean you don't have to do the school run? I'm like, yeah. He's like, I want to do it. And I was like, no, like I'm not doing it. That is not the reason why. Like you have to get up and go, like yourselves. Like if you're not organized, if you don't get up in the morning yourselves, how can you expect your kids to get up? You know, you've become their role model. So you got to lead by example. And you know, if you're not a certain minded person who hasn't got that, or you're not willing to develop into that sort of person, then it's not right for you. And like we might make it look easy, but we've been doing it for 6 years. Like we've learned over time, and it is hard. So you should expect it to be hard, but it will get easier over time because you're going to learn more, you're going to develop more, you're going to systemize the process and make it as easy as possible for yourself in the long run. But that takes time, and it takes years, and like we're still learning, we're still finding new resources, and there's always new challenges that will come up as well. So if you're adaptable and you're really committed and you've got patience, then it could be the way to go. But you've got to really dig deep and look at what your intention is, and you know what you're doing it for, and look at it for your child's future. Make sure if you're going to do it, you're going to commit and help them achieve and get your child, you know, where they want to go. And you got to have flexibility that your child has their own mind, and eventually they'll have their own vision, their own passion, what they want to achieve. And you can't really enforce, maybe like, you know, like Asians, we might want them to be an accountant and doctor. It's not going to work like that.
Engineer, doctor.
Not going to work like that, but we're going to give them and help them to have all the tools that they need,
and to make the right choices,
and hopefully make the right choices when the decisions have to be made, and hopefully they're in the right environment and have the right friends around them to help them. And that's what we're trying to set up for them. That's all. But we can't control their lives. We can't choose what they do as a career. You know, like if you think you can control it all the way, you can't, and that's unrealistic.
And I guess children do need the independence as well, don't they? They need that time where they can just relax as well and play games. And I'm sure you did mention they have that.
So like sometimes we have to go out for a drive, for a coffee, to give them their space as well. So one of them might be in the office on the computer, one's on the phone, the little one's on the laptop or watching TV, and we give them that space, but we're giving ourselves space as well.
Yeah.
You're in a house all together constantly, and you don't want to become part of the furniture with everyone, and like, you know, you want to still have that nice relationship. So sometimes you've got to just step away, do things separately, and then you come back and do things together again. And it works. But yeah, you got to be aware, you know, you got to have a lot of awareness, I think, for things like that, and like try and think ahead, and, you know, like very understanding as well.
Yeah.
But it takes time. Like, you're not going to have the answers, and you shouldn't feel like you should have the answers as well. And that's where support helps as well. We got friends like, Soiful is a teacher, you've got your cousin who's a primary school teacher as well. So like, we seek advice as well, and we know we've got that backup as well. And if you haven't, you can, you know, find people for backup. You can join WhatsApp groups like the sisters group and different things, and build that support network as well. And that helps a lot as well. Because self-doubt is one of the biggest things that you will get. And I think what the message is, like, that's all right. Like, everyone has that. But if you have support, like, you can overcome that. And and it's good to show you have self-doubt. It shows you care. And, you know, like, if you don't have self-doubt, if you're not if you're not always unsure, then you're not going to be like looking for answers. And then, you know, that's the wrong attitude. I think having self-doubt and not knowing everything, but willing to seek it, seeking help, being resourceful, that will help. So yeah.
You said your wife has a sisters group, support network, and how do you find that helps? Do you feel like there's people always on there giving advice, motivation, sharing resources? Do you feel like any parent who wants to go on that journey of homeschooling must have like-minded people in their network?
Yeah, it's about reassuring each other, because women do, you know, as mothers, we do doubt ourselves all the time. But if everyone reassures each other, saying, you know, we do go through the same thing, you know, it's okay. It's okay to be stressed. It's okay to have problems, you know, challenges, and it's just that support, you know, you've got there. And the sisters group, yeah, alhamdulillah, it's good. You know, whenever anyone does have questions, or, you know, they want help, we do, you know, give it to them. So yeah, support is vital.
I think sometimes you all like just share what you're doing, like your work and stuff like that, and that motivates each other.
So at the beginning, you know, when lockdown did happen, was a year ago, that group was, you know, was fantastic. Everyone shared, you know, before the schools got, you know, into the online, you know, process. Yeah, they you know, we started sharing Twinkle, you know, worksheets. You know, the sisters were, you know, really good. They, you know, they shared what they were doing at home with their kids, with their, you know, like different age groups. It was fantastic. But obviously, you know, the schools have provided now resources and, you know, timetable for their school, so it's quieted down a bit. But yeah, alhamdulillah, it was fantastic when we needed it.
And I think that the way the schools are with lockdown, there's so much resources and websites out there now that wasn't there before. So it's easier, and a lot of resources are free now. And so there's literally free lessons in maths and everything going on. Like, even school teachers have come together and like collectively done lessons and just put it online, and it's free. So in a way, this is the best time ever, if you're thinking of homeschooling, to do it as well, because it's unlimited, the resources out there. But before, it was something like you had to go and find, where now people just putting it out there. It's a good time now to get into it if you are thinking as well. And you will know now, because, you know, like, you've been doing homeschooling from home, so you could like see, is this something you could do? And you can actively see like the resources that are out there. And if you're going to do it, this is a good time as well to do it, I think.
I guess we have to stress, and you've mentioned it many times throughout this chat, that if anyone is thinking about doing it, it's not that easy, and you do need to have a lifestyle that can cater for homeschooling as well. Because I've seen on the news, I think they were showing on BBC News the other day, there was a parent who was working. She normally goes to work, but she was working from home, had 4 kids, one of them's not listening, and because it's something new to them. And I guess in some way or another, every single parent since lockdown has faced this challenge of not knowing how all of this kind of thing works. It might be suited for more people who work from home anyway, whose business is from home normally, even before the lockdown. Because if it's something that they're planning to do now and they're still working 9 to 5, it might be very tricky to kind of start all of a sudden, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. So I think initially you got to analyze yourself. Like if you've got a demanding career, you've got to work certain hours. Where are you going to fit this in? And like you can't expect to come home and then start lessons. Like 8 in the evening. It's not going to work. Like you have to be realistic. So like it helps if the main teacher who's going to teach a child is based at home. Like that has to be like fundamental. They got to lead, and it has to be at a time that's appropriate to teach children. Or if you're going to leave, if you're going to pull them out of school and then leave them all day at home, and you're going to work, and what they're going to do is just play computer games all day. Like it's not going to be productive. It's not going to help the child, and it's not going to help you either. It's completely the wrong way. Like we're not against school. Like school has its place, and I think it does fantastic for certain people, and for certain people it's probably not the right thing. But we're not against school. We don't bash school, and I think we're the sort that says school is the best place still, unless you've got things set up and you're prepared to do initially, and you've got that mindset and mentality. I'd rather put people off homeschooling and not be an advocate and like fly the flag and everyone should do it. We're like the opposite because we know how hard it is. That's why I say we don't want to make it seem easy. But there's certain people out there who like are really determined, and they've got that determination to work from home, and they can see they can do that as well, and they're probably the right people to do that. But you will only know. But you just got to look around, and look around your house and see, is it set up, and how your relationship is with your child as well. That's very important. Like if you tell them to pick up their socks and they don't do it, do you expect them to pick up a book and sit there for 2-3 hours? It's difficult. There has to be that respect level, and your child has to give you respect and listen to you, and
especially like when with their siblings as well, they form a relationship. When they're homeschooled together, they have a relationship where they teamwork, they know each other, even though they're different ages. They've bonded with each other.
And I guess they can help one another out as well if they get stuck. Like your eldest son can help your youngest, your daughter who's 6 years old. Like there is that relationship, this strong bond that builds through homeschooling.
And you should encourage that as well, because like if one of your child is teaching the other, they're gaining skills in teaching, confidence and things like that. So we encourage them to help each other as well. And I think that gives them more confidence. And then I've seen that my sons, like even when they're online with their madrasa lessons, they're teaching other kids as well. So they're like really enhancing the skills. So homeschooling gives you that advantage that you can see what they're good at, or even what their weakness is, and towards strengthening that.
And I've seen, I know you guys got a YouTube channel, Ahmed Homeschooling. So is it Ahmed Homeschooling? It is, isn't it?
Homeschooling, yeah.
Yes. So do follow that, guys, whoever's watching. And I've seen that it's not just on table where you're just studying. I've seen your children, videos of your kids doing projects, doing plays. I think once you were doing the article something, and it's a mixture of learning. Even like this is a kind of learning as well, isn't it? Like using technology, using the media, doing plays, performances. And I've seen some of your children's acting. They really should start an acting career soon, I think.
That is like, because they're at home and like they're looking at what's trending out there, what is working. So people looking at coding, YouTube, websites, and they're taking interest in things, and we're giving them the flexibility to like follow that interest. So they suddenly look at YouTube, and like I found like kids these days watch a lot of YouTube and they're consuming a lot of information, but I sort of like wanted to twist that around and say, look, why don't you be the producer of the content than just sitting consuming content and doing nothing with it? And as soon as I sort of set that challenge, like they sort of flew with it. Like the videos, like we don't sit there directing them. most of the time I don't know what's going on until they come and say, Dad, I've done a video, can you share it? Can you share it? Can you share it out? I need more views and stuff like that. So I think their mentality is changing, and they're becoming like content producers, like sort of just taking information, doing nothing with it. Like there's kids that just play games and games and games, and they're learning a lot, but they don't do nothing with it. We're trying to encourage them. There's nothing wrong in playing games or watching YouTube all day. If there's something positive
comes out of it,
yeah, then it's fine. But if you're just sitting there and you're just turning into a cabbage, and your kid's just eating popcorn and getting fat and just watching that, that's not positive. Like, so, you know, like, we don't discourage them from doing things as long as there's a positive outcome. And yeah, like they're excelling with that, and they're doing it themselves. And then with me, it's just like, if you're going to do it, I put some structure in place, like plan it, like write out what you want to do.
Yeah.
Script, you know, like just giving them a bit more structure around it to help. And like, I don't know it. I do my research and see, okay, if you're going to do this sort of thing, this is the way you should do it. And so then I'm teaching them some skills, but then they just fly with it, and they research and find out what they need, what tools online they need to make it happen. My son asked me for a webcam so he can record himself talking, and got a mic. And I don't mind investing in that, because then I know he's really developing his skills. And like, they even know how to edit videos now. Like, where would they find the time in school, like especially in primary school and things like that, to do things like that? Be able to do it.
It's really gearing them up for, you know, when they're older, they can even, you know, it's not just as you said, watching and consuming, but it's being productive and being proactive about these kind of things where they can make use of time. They're doing projects and things like this as well. So it's a good balance that you've got going, mashallah.
Kind of thing, you know, skills, English. They need to spell. They need to write the content.
Of course, yeah.
You know, based around maths, English. You know, so they're learning everything. They're picking up everything themselves.
And that's what we said about independent learning. They're researching as well for themselves. And like, I find I'm learning from them. Like, I might ask them to edit a video for me for my work, because they're good at it now. So they've got skills that in the future they can monetize as well. Like, they could make an income out of it in the future, and it's upskilling them for future jobs or run.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know, there's a lot of positives, and it's them following their passion because they want to do it. In normal sort of school environments, you got to follow the norm first and do that as like extracurricular work or in your spare time. So it's very difficult where we can let them just do that all afternoon or evening, and it works.
And I think what it is I think we are their role model. So we're the only ones they're actually, you know, seeing. So their dad, they're seeing their dad doing all these, you know, like media, you know, computer, IT things. So they're picking up everything their dad's doing. So apart from, you know, school is, you're looking at, you know, like 30 kids your age group. Whereas our kids are looking at us, the way we talk to people, the way we have a relationship with our friends, the way their dad, you know, does work. So they're picking up all the skills that they would actually need for the future. So they're picking it up early.
And naturally, like subliminally, they don't even know it, but they're just picking it up. I see sometimes my kids are like answering the phone and pretending to be me, and they know all about our work, all about our clients, and it's quite good, you know, like they're picking up stuff that is like makes them really like rounded, like not just education but as people as well. And we're not forcing that on them, they're just naturally picking it up.
It's just subconsciously, because they're seeing all of these things happening, they're just learning on the go every day something.
And when they're young, information anyway, it's just natural for them, so it's a good time to teach these things, because later on, like, they're going to have so much stuff already in their mind and they're preoccupied that they might not pick these things up, and we won't have that time with them if they're going and doing their own stuff and work and things. So this is a good time. And I think what it does help is your relationship with your children as well, because kids, you know, like, they grow up fast, and like certain, I mean, people sometimes think, like, isn't it strange that you spend all your time with your kids, and even like you spend all your time with your wife at home? And for us, it's like, no, that's our family. It's like normality. Why should
Exactly. Yeah.
Especially with our kids, because our relationship is stronger with them. You know, like my kids are happy to come and just talk to me, play a computer game with me. Where like growing up, our relationship with our parents was very different because they were just working like day and night almost, and
Yeah.
and you didn't have that bond with them that you could just chat about anything, or you feel you can go and talk to them. Where it's very different like now for us is because we've got that communication, we've got that bond, and they feel like we're approachable as well. So it helps in your long-term relationship with your children as well.
I know we're taking a long time to do this, but apologies, guys, if it's gone on for so long. But I think it's been very beneficial for those people who are thinking about homeschooling, do want to know how everything works. So thank you so much, guys, for joining us. Before I go to the Q&A, I've got one last question that I was just thinking about now, actually. How do you guys set up for exams? Because ultimately, you can be doing homeschooling, you're teaching them all of these things, but at the end of the day, as you mentioned before, qualification is what counts. People, jobs, they want to see qualification. They want to see a result to what they have been learning for all those years. So in terms of exams and exam boards, how does all that work? I know you probably haven't reached that stage yet, because obviously your kids are still 13 and young. But I mean, what's your plans for GCSEs?
I think like my wife's already researched examining boards, haven't you? And she's checked like which ones are suitable for certain courses. When I mean suitable is like how much coursework's involved, how it based on the exams, and depending on the one that we felt gives our child the best options to get a good qualification. We've then seen what worksheets, workbooks support those exams. So we've already actually looked at that. So we took a long-term view. And so you've selected some examining boards for, was it maths, especially?
AQA, there's AQA.
AQA, and then
Excel.
Excel. So we've been looking at exam boards, and we've been looking at, so obviously we looked at forums where parents are recommending different examining boards. So I think you should look ahead, because depending on the examining board, you will know like what sort of exams could be coming up. You can then get mock exam papers. So they prepare lessons, even if it's years ahead, you know, you've got something to aim for. But when it comes down to exams, you can book your child into an exam, like any GCSEs, A-levels, and you can book it any age. You don't have to wait till they're a certain age, like what you're meant to do in like normal conventional school. So they can do the exams early. The only difference is you've got to find out from the examining board where they hold the exam. Usually in Cambridge, it's in a hall somewhere, and you can book it and you just pay the fee. It could be a couple of £100, but once you booked it, they can go sit the exam and they'll get the results. Like
it's not that difficult at all to sit the exams.
That's the exam process. You book it, you pay for it, and they sit it. And I guess the good thing is like what we're looking at is maybe we're focusing on the core subjects, and my oldest son is confident enough he could sit an exam a couple of years early, and it doesn't really matter what the result is because he could sit it again. For experience, he could sit it, get used to the environment, and we can pay him maybe in 6 months or 1 year to sit it again if he hasn't done well.
If he has to, yeah.
So we've got that flexibility, literally.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, guys. We're going to go to the Q&As now. Someone's asked, can you please provide a cheat sheet for your live session? So I'm assuming like a summary of everything that's been discussed. But don't worry, guys. This video is going to go on YouTube, so you can watch it whenever you want. Whichever parts you've missed, you can catch up on that, inshallah. We've got another question. How did you know you would have all the right knowledge to teach them what they need to know? I think you've touched on that, but if you want to add anything extra.
You won't know initially. You have to research, look at the subjects you want to teach, look at the resources available, and look at the workbooks, and what was the examining boards. You know, you're going to have to research. Teachers as well. Teachers are there to help you. You know, you can speak to the school and say, look, this is what I want to teach. Can you give me resources, workbooks, worksheets initially to get me started? If you've got friends that are teachers or family members, speak to them as well. You won't know initially, but you're going to have to do your research. And you don't need to know everything. You need to know just enough to start the process. And
and I guess it's a learning process, learning curve. You're learning every day about how you can improve, what you can do.
You have to learn to become a teacher yourself, and become an effective teacher for your children. So you've got to be adaptable and understand how they learn, and then sort of develop yourself and your skills as well.
I would recommend, if someone wants to begin homeschooling,
I mean,
homeschooling
initially, like, you could go online, like there's sites like Udemy, type in homeschooling, look at the courses that have got the highest ratings, and it could be cheap as £5-10, and just pick 1 or 2 courses just to get a feel of things. I'm sure there's resources online on YouTube that are free as well. Just get a good feel, or find out locally if there's any like Facebook groups that you could join, and then you can ask parents, maybe get on a phone call to them and gain information from them.
Excellent. How do you manage to get the kids to do lessons at home and maintain a good concentration span? I think we've spoken about that, how you spend your daily life, but if there's anything else.
Small, bite size, plenty of breaks. Kids, when they're at home, they love to come and ask for food constantly as well. So have a lot of snacks ready, healthy snacks ideally, but keep it bite size, keep it small. Don't like go for a full 5-6 hours. You know, you can do 2-3 hours. Sometimes you could do a day's worth of lessons that you would have done at school in a couple of hours, because you're spending 1-to-1 session with your child. You don't need long sessions.
Drink a lot of tea. That's what...
They need to stay hydrated, right? Can you please provide the website name? With someone else, another sister, I think.
Twinkl.co.uk, twinkl.co.uk.
They have a lot of free stuff going on now, so
and if the price is expensive when you look at it, see if there's a promo code, or try and partner up with someone else who might be doing homeschooling and share the cost and share the sign-in logins with someone, and then you could half the cost.
How did you overcome the worries of kids not having any social interaction? We've spoken about that. Is there an inspector who visits you on a regular basis to inspect the progress of the kids? Very good question.
Good question. Okay, so once a year you get a form from your council. That's what we get in Cambridge, saying, are you still providing home education? What are you providing? What resources do you use? Typically, we're using online resources. We go to the library, we do trips. It's just bullet points. You send a form, job done. The council could inspect you anytime. You should prepare, as if you are going to be inspected, you should have lesson plans ready. It's just simple stuff, but you've got to show that you are providing education. Have a little planner, timetable. If you've got those minimum things in place, and if you're teaching your kids, you've got nothing to worry about. In 6 years of doing this, we've had no inspections at all. Usually, there's going to have to be a concern raised somewhere to even warrant someone to come and inspect you. Usually, these departments are understaffed. When I mean understaffed, in Cambridge, the homeschooling department has 1 member of staff, and she's part-time, and I think she only works on a Monday. So he's not going to come and inspect you on it. Someone would have to raise something. I think if you're going with the right intention, you've got nothing to worry about. Just be structured, plan everything, and there should be no problems.
So you've mentioned in 6 years, no one's come to inspect you, see what you're doing. And I guess if they were to do that, they won't just turn up at your doorstep any day. They will give you some sort of advance notice.
Possibly, but be prepared that they won't. Then you've got nothing to worry about, because then everything in place. Be prepared that they could just knock on your door. I'd rather plan for the worst. We've got everything set up. We've got our planner. We've got lesson timetables set up. So if they come unexpected, it's not an issue. I think prepare for the worst. And like we said, we've never had an inspection, so no issue.
How do you go about exams? We've talked about that. So we've talked about exams. Someone's asking, can they get homeschooled as well? Ask a parent, mate. Do you need to have an extra room in the house to be dedicated to give your kids the classes so they get into the mode? Again, we've touched on that as well. Obviously, having extra spaces.
Really small. You could start with the dining room, you could. But when they're growing up, I think you need to find a dedicated space somewhere in your house. But when they're really small, if it's just one child, you could get away with it.
Yeah, you've got some fans, alhamdulillah. Someone's message saying, well done guys, you've been ahead of time, homeschooling is now the future, it's not easy. Brother Noman, mashallah, he's praising you guys for your efforts. What do you do when you haven't come from a practicing background and the kids are used to games, music, and a lot of idle time? How can you then channel them to just do homeschooling? That might be something very difficult for the parent, right?
I think like you gotta have to do things slowly. Like you can't have a dramatic change if they've been used to a certain way for many years. Like you can't just undo it straight away. Yeah, so just slowly, like put more time into education, more time into other things that they have maybe less time doing what they obviously speak to them, educate them, but be a role model for them as well. Like you can't just
expect them to do something
change suddenly, like
when you're not doing it yourself.
Yeah, and you've allowed them to get into that habit over years, like it's hard to just change it. So be patient, but have that aim to change them slowly by giving them other activities and getting their minds off it slowly so that they naturally sort of look at other avenues and fall in place. But speak to them, like talk to your child and explain why this isn't right, and then slowly just make changes.
To that subject, one of the main reasons as well was starting homeschooling was we do dedicate our month to the month of Ramadan, where we fasting, where my children can actually fast and go to Taraweeh and do their ibadah, extra ibadah. So during the month of Ramadan we stop everything apart from reading Quran. We do little projects about Islamic projects, and
Fridays we don't do any lesson
at the moment. In our timetable it's Monday to Thursdays, and Friday we have off because
obviously before it was for Jummah and stuff like that.
Because my boys go to Jummah and ibadah, Quran, they read Surah Kahf, so we've got into that routine. So we have to put the timetable,
and it doesn't matter
for them to follow it and for them to carry it on in their life in the future.
This is a long-term thing, so even if it takes 1 year, 2 years to slowly wean your child off those sort of habits, fine. But
slowly
you can do it slowly,
and explain the reason behind it. Don't expect your child to just do something when they don't understand it.
Yeah, if you just say no, this is wrong.
You have to explain it to them and the reason behind it, because everything has a reason behind.
Of course, yeah.
So, and children do understand. They understand, the reason behind everything, and they will learn themselves. And inshallah, they'll put it into practice when they get married or when they have children. So it's important for them to understand themselves to carry it on.
Exactly. So I think the whole concept of lifestyle, it's not just for now, it's for the future. That Friday morning where you have, where you're doing no work, no school, but it's dedicated for Allah. I think that's a beautiful thing, reading Surah Kahf and spiritually being ready and getting ready for Jumu'ah. I think that in itself is an amazing thing. Thank you so much, guys. And alhamdulillah, I think it's been an eye-opener for me. Inshallah, in the future, I'll think about it. But I'm sure, we've come to a time where everyone is doing homeschooling now. So whether or not you do homeschooling regularly, it's going to help you during this lockdown. Before I finish, guys, I want you guys to give me 3 words to summarize everything about homeschooling for you guys. 3 words to explain, describe, however you want to put it to our viewers about homeschooling and what you've learned about it.
Well, you need a lot of patience. That's one.
Okay, patience. Yeah, definitely. I think
coffee.
You need coffee.
And you need a lot of support. Like you need good friends and family to support you with your decision. That's the main thing. You need positive words.
Yeah, because I guess I'm assuming that it hasn't been easy in terms of initially when you started this, there must have been some people who are saying negative things about it. Like, how are you sure? How are you going to do it? But then you know, you just learn as it comes, isn't it?
I think initially, like, you will get people questioning you, and it's usually people know you closely, so they'll be like, "Why are you doing this?" Like, if you're doing homeschooling, does that mean sending our kids to school is completely wrong? And it's like, it's not like that. They get defensive and thinking we think it's a better choice. It's not like that. It's just our choice, but we're comfortable with.
It's our life.
Every family is different at the end.
Our journey, it's our life,
and we don't try and impose it on anyone. We don't think like we should. Like, it's up to you, and you know, how can you impose it on someone? So initially, I think that's one of the biggest things we get. But you're going to have to, if you believe in it fundamentally, you're going to have to like ignore negativity, because you're doing it for you and your child. It's not for other people's opinions. So you've got to have to be quite strong-willed, you know, in a certain aspect, and not worry about what other people are thinking, because at the end of the day, they're not going to homeschool your child for you. They're not going to teach them for you. It's you. So, you know, you can explain it, but eventually you're just going to have to just focus on your thing and go for it. You know, you don't need to tell the whole world and make it a topic of conversation. You know, it's a personal decision.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one thing I've also learned, one word that I would use is probably routine. Everything you've talked about, there has to be a routine, doesn't it? Otherwise, if you're someone who doesn't even have routine for yourself, how on earth are you going to have routine and manage a routine for your children? So it's not like get up, think, oh, I want to do homeschooling from tomorrow. It's not as easy. You have to kind of sit down, think, and have a vision, have some sort of aspiration as well for your children.
That's what I would say. You can't be selfish. You can't just think about yourself all the time.
It needs routine, like you said, and you've got to develop habits of a lifetime. Everything needs to become habits, like positive habits. And you can work on them, like just one habit a day. That's your child and yourself towards getting to your goal. So yeah, routine is one. If you don't have routine now and discipline, then forget it for your child. You need to work on that yourself initially. And we had that only because we were running our own business. Like, our bills wouldn't get paid, our mortgage wouldn't get paid if we didn't have routine. If we didn't do our job, serve our clients, then we couldn't do it. So that instilled routine and that mindset you need. So if you don't have that, you've got to work on that first before you even think about homeschooling. But you can get there, but you got to realize that first, that you need that in place.
Brilliant. Last, I think it's just a comment for you guys, words of praise. Jazakallah khairan for the advice. I have to use this advice. Allah bless you and your family. And I think on that note, must say Jazakallah. Thank you for giving us your time, guys. I know your time is very special. I'm sure viewers will benefit, inshallah. And it's been lovely speaking to you. So, Brother Alamin, Sister Neela, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.